day. So this is Angelica Torres from BTL Ed1. So now I were going to discuss the parts of the front panel, the back panel, and the motherboard. So before we continue, we define first what is a front panel. So a front panel was used in the early electronic computers to display and allow the alteration of the state of the machine's internal registers and memory. So here are the parts of the front panel. So first is the optical drive. Next is the USB port. Next is the microphone jack. Then the headset jack, the reset button, and the power switch. There are also two parts of the front panel and the buttons, which is the hard drive light and the power light. And those are the parts of the front panel. The back panel. So before we discuss or identify the parts of the back panel, we're going to define first what is a back panel. So a back panel is the portion of the motherboard that allows you to connect external devices such as your monitor, keyboards, speakers, and the mouse. And here are the parts of the back panel. So first is the power connector. Next is the power supply cooling fan, the PS2 keyboard connector, the PS2 mouse connector, serial COM port, parallel port, thumb screw, VGA port, USB port, 10 to 100 MBs, RJ45 Ethernet LAN port, the microphone jack, the audio out jack, the line in jack, the 56 kbs RG11 modem ports, and the expansion ports. So those are the parts of the back panel. So the last part we tackle is the parts of the motherboard. So what is the motherboard? So one of the major functions of the motherboard is to act as the hub to which other computer devices connect. The motherboard itself is a printed circuit board that allows the CPU, RAM, and all other computers' hardware components to communicate with each other. So here are the parts of the motherboard. So first is the ATX plus 12B auxiliary power socket. So next is the CPU socket, which is a mechanical component that provides mechanical and electrical connections between a microprocessor and a printed circuit board or PCB. It allows the CPU to be replaced by soldering. So next is the North Bridge chipset. It is connected directly to the CPU via the front side bus or FSB, and it is responsible for tasks that requires the highest performance. So next is the opposite of it, which is the South Bridge subset. The South Bridge subset is a connections which needs a lower speed peripheral buses such as a PCI or ISA. So next is the PCIe slot. It allows your motherboard to connect with your PC's most critical components and provide key functionality. They also supply you with the numerous customization and upgrade options when you're ready to venture beyond preluded features like graphics and storage. So next is the PCI slot. A PCI slot stands for Peripheral Component Interconnect or PCI, is the most common way to attach add-on controller cards and other devices to the computer motherboard. So next is the ROM slot. A ROM slot is a memory slot or a memory socket that allows ROM to be inserted into the computer. So most motherboards have 2 to 4 memory slots, which determine the type of ROM used by the computer. So next is the ATX 24-pin power socket. So next is the IDE header or socket. It is a standard interface for connecting a motherboard to storage devices such as hard drives and CD-ROM or DVD drives. Next is the CMOS battery. A CMOS battery stands for complementary metal oxide semiconductor. The CMOS battery powers the BIOS firmware in your laptop. Next is the SATA connector. SATA stands for Serial Advanced Technology Attachment. It is an IDE standard first released in 2001 for connecting devices like optical drives and hard drives to the motherboard. Next is the BIOS chip. In short, Basic Input and Output System is a ROM chip found in the motherboards that allows to access and set up your computer system at the most basic levels. So next is the fluffy header or a socket. It is where the fluffy drive connects to the computer motherboard. So another parts which is found in the back plate. First is the VGA port. A VGA port stands for Video Graphics Array Connector. It is a standard connector used for computer video output. Next is the PS2 port. It is a 6-pin mini DIN connector used for connecting keyboards and mice to the PC-compatible computer system. So, next is the DVI port. A DVI port stands for Digital Visual Interface and offers a distinctly sharper, better picture than VGA. It is a unique connector because it can carry both digital and analog signals. Next is the HDMI port. Next is the INO port or input and output port. It allows for connections to hardware. This hardware could be internal or external. Common I/O ports include the USB and the FireWire. Next is the sound port. Sound port is a computer's audio ports link the computer's sound hardware with your speakers, microphone, headsets, and other audio equipment. Next is the LAN port. The term refers to a chip or chipset capable of network connections that has been embedded directly on the motherboard of the desktop, workstation, or a server. Next is the USB port. A USB port, many modern-day motherboards provide a number of USB pin headers that allow connections to USB ports mounted on the front of the system case. Next is the FireWire port. A FireWire port, which is also called a IEEE 1394, is a connecting device used primarily for adding peripherals to a computer. It also often used for connecting external hard drives and digital camcorders that benefit from a high performance or a high transfer rate. Lastly is the ASATA port. Is a SATA connector accessible from outside the computer. They provide a signal but not power connections for external storage devices. And those are the parts of the front panel, the back panel, and the motherboard. And I hope you learned something from this discussion. And that's all. Thank you.